welcome to another episode of the Wrap Up Live. I almost forgot the name of the show. I'm Oren Weisfeld. I'm joined by Aiden Sahal and Keon. We got the full foursome in effect. Shouldn't call us that. We need a better nickname, but we got all of us here for the first time in a long time. I'm excited to be here with you guys. We're coming in fresh off a 120-100 win over the Charlotte Hornets. A real exciting game for the Toronto Raptors. Their second back-to-back win over the Hornets to finally push them above 500. We're going to talk a little bit about the game. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Nick Nurse, and maybe we'll take some listener questions. We'll just see what happens.
What about the quad ceratops?
I was gonna say Fantastic Four, but I don't want to get sued.
At least mine's original.
Yeah, they're both honestly 2 out of 10. Like, yeah. Anyways, Raptors win. Who wants to talk about this game?
I'll start. I mean, they played. I feel like when we reach this point of the season, there's always those 1 or 2 NBA teams that are just playing 4 or 5 G leaguers, starting 4 or 5 G leaguers, usually because the team sucks. Now, I kind of feel bad for the Charlotte Hornets because they've been riddled with injury since the season began, and I know a lot of people are going to respond to that with, well, they sucked anyways. You're right, but I mean, if you're a Hornets fan, there's not much to look forward to when this season was beginning, maybe except for LaMelo Ball. You do have some really good, like Terry Rozier is a really good basketball player. But like beyond that, I mean, there's not really much. Gordon Hayward, not the same Gordon Hayward. Kelly Oubre, I mean, yeah, great for Instagram on the basketball court.
Good looking guy.
Mid. Yeah, great. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the fans know that. You could just, what's funny? Go through his Instagram comments. I do it like once every few months just to get a good laugh out of it. And you just see, yeah. Good looking guy. Yeah, Charlotte's a horrible team, and everybody's injured, and they lost really bad in the last game versus the Raptors. They've been losing this bad all season. They have some guys with pretty cool names like JT Thor. Like that's probably like top 5 coolest name in the league. Svi is there.
Cool name.
Book Knight, yeah. I mean,
Teo Maladon kind of rocks if you're into names.
Yeah. I mean, other than that, what else? I mean, Jordan owns the team, but he's trying to even sell them. So there's not much going right for this franchise. This game in particular.
No, you're going to make the case. You're going to make the case for the Hornets.
There we go.
Surely,
I like the little youth movement they have going on. I like McGowan's. I think Book Knight's going to find his form. I think since maybe February, I don't have the dates correct, that they've had one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. Like they pulled their shit together. Like Dennis Scott Jr. is like born again. Who knows with ball? PJ Washington. I don't think they have like a stellar team, but they showed something. They looked like they were dead in the water, and they kind of put something together. I think Richards looks really good. I like Mark Williams, their draft pick. They've missed on a ton of picks, but they showed a little bit of resilience.
I like Ball. Like I think that's the one guy who's actually really good. Everyone else who you named is like okay and could be good, but I would say that, to be honest, they have one of the worst situations in the league. Just like they're young, they have a lot of young talent, but not a lot of it is like high-end young talent. And they could get Wemby, and that could all change this draft. But like right now, I look at the team, I look at LaMelo Ball, and I'm like, why would he want to stay there for the next however many years? Like it's not a very sexy situation. They hired the same coach after firing him a year later. Like Jordan, who is a big appeal, I would think, for young players, wants out. So I don't think it's a great situation. But Keon, to get to you, out of all of those cool names we just said, is there a guy that like stuck out to you that you want to talk about from the Hornets?
It has to be Svi. I mean, I don't know what got into this guy and how this was not possible last year. He couldn't hit an open three on the Raptors last year, and now he's hitting corner threes over OG, heavily contested, and he looks so confident out there, and it just goes to show how many NBA players can really succeed if they're the focal point of an offense and if they just had an increased role. Obviously, that's just not a realistic thing to expect in the future, but I mean that's probably the biggest name I've been paying attention to. Everyone else, I can't see at least 3 or 4 of these guys even being on the Hornets next year.
Bryce McGowan's, man. Bryce McGowan's.
Yeah, sorry, my audio was bad, but I fixed it.
I didn't even know who Bryce McGowan is. That his name? McGowan's? Is it McGowan?
McGowan's. Yeah.
I didn't even know who he was going into this game, and that's a big thing because like I'm pretty big on the G League, and I'm gonna assume this guy came from somewhere in the G League. And I had no idea. I was trying to figure it out the entire time. I kept thinking there's no way Shabazz Napier grew like 5-6 inches as I was watching him from afar. But
LeBron's boy.
Yeah, Bryce McGowan's 20 points, right? 7 for 12. If I were to put my hand over all of the stats and show you the box score of this game and just leave the names there, you would have thought this was they're called the Greensboro Swarm, right? That's their team. You would have thought this was their G League team. So
yeah,
there's not much to take away from this game.
UConn's men's team is beating this team.
Yeah, UConn, San Diego State. No. I mean, I'm even taking the Iowa Hawkeyes, right? Keelan Clark, the biggest phenomenon in basketball right now.
Just the Hornets.
No, Charlotte's horrible. There's not much to take from this game. The Raptors beat a very bad basketball team, and somehow, some way, the Raptors were behind in this game. I don't know how. I'm still not fully on board, and I don't know if we're ready this quick to transition into
Bring it on, baby. Bring it on.
I'm not really on board with these rotations just yet, especially versus teams that are this bad at basketball. I'm looking at the box score, and I get it. The bench showed out, right? You get great games from Chris Boucher, 21 points. Great game from Precious Achiuwa, right? At least scoring. I did make a few mistakes, but I mean, it is what it is. It's Precious Achiuwa. Will Barton, fantastic game, right? We finally get that Will Barton breakout game we've all been waiting for. 20 points. He was a plus 26, which was the highest in the game, I'm pretty sure. Just couldn't miss Will Barton. 6 for 9 from 3. Fantastic. But the Raptors were up the vast majority of this game, up 10, 15, 20 points. And I just don't get how a guy like Pascal Siakam still in a game like this manages to reach 35 minutes. Jeff Doughton Jr., to me, did not play nearly enough, 12 minutes. The Raptors went up against quite literally a G League level team, and they still couldn't find a way. I mean, I get it. The rest of the starters under 30 minutes. Bravo, Nick Nurse, fantastic. I think that's the first time maybe this season 4 out of the 5 starters under 30 minutes. But I would have still liked to see more because this is as bad as it's going to get for NBA talent. I'm sorry, Hornets fans, if you're listening to this. This is as bad as it's going to get for the Raptors. And unfortunately, after this, I mean, it's a complete switch up. They got Boston, I think, twice
tomorrow,
and then they got Milwaukee. So, yeah. I mean, yeah.
I think in terms of this game, like the Hornets played hard. They got back on defense in transition. But like the talent definitely showed for the Raptors. And I do think the thing, if you want to be negative about it, is that it still looks hard for them to score, even against really bad teams sometimes. And like in the first half, it was because they were getting these open threes, but they were going to like Siakam and Barnes mostly, and they just weren't knocking down wide open threes. So I do think that is still the problem with this team, and that like for them to really score and like put up like a lot of points, it has to be like tic-tac-toe. Like the passing has to be crisp. Like when they thrived in this game, it was like the ball was moving on a string and stuff like that. They don't have the personnel to just like launch up threes and run away with a game like this on like, you know, what would usually be like a typical easy win late in the season. I don't think they really have like that type of build, so they have to play a certain way offensively to win. And it's like it takes a lot of work. I think it takes a lot of like focus and just like quick reads and all that stuff. But yeah, anyone else on the game?
I think you go from the other side of that perspective. It was encouraging to see them flick a switch because, like to your point, sometimes they do flick that switch and nothing happens.
Mhm.
And I think it's frustrating. That's frustrating. Then it's to your point. It's also frustrating when they aren't doing that like crisp ball movement, attack, drive, kick, swing, whatever. Like when you see it happen, you're like, why aren't you doing this all the time? Which can be frustrating. But all of that to say, it is encouraging to see that against a team they can just be like, no, it's game time. And I feel like that's one of the problems with this Raptors team is other than the final 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, we don't see these guys go into overdrive and like turn the course of a game, or we don't see it that often rather. So I mean, if there's anything to take away from this game, it was maybe that, just that they could snuff out a lesser team quite decisively when they wanted to.
Yeah. And that the bench was good, I think. Like that's also a good sign.
Yeah, the bench shot well. I don't know if they were good, it's just that they shot well. Is that the same thing? I don't know.
They were good enough as they had to be.
Yeah.
I also think, like, last thing on the Raptors before we move on to this Nick Nurse stuff.
What?
I think OG is on a tear.
I was going to say, we have to talk about OG.
Enough.
We have to talk about him.
Yeah, it's been like I guess I would say a month now. A bit less than that since he returned to the injury from the hand injury, and he's been shooting the lights out. Today he only went 1 of 6 from 3, but like his off the bounce game just looks so much smoother, so much more confident. Way fewer turnovers when he puts the ball on the floor. Way more comfortable creating space with his strength. Good decision, quick decision making. I don't know, like what else is there to say about OG? And he doesn't look like the guy before the trade deadline.
He looks way more engaged. I've been talking a lot with. I've been trying to gauge everybody on Raptors Twitter's thoughts on OG and how he's been playing the last couple of months. And one thing I keep coming back to is the fact that I think his finger injury is beyond him at this point. Like and if you've ever had a finger injury and you try and play basketball, either hand, it doesn't matter. Obviously, shooting hand is much worse, but and I'm pretty sure in OG's case it was the shooting hand. It really affects your shot, right? Affects the spin you put on your shot, affects everything. The amount of force you could put into that shot. And I think that is the biggest change we've seen in OG. The biggest positive change is that the fact that his 3-point shot has looked incredible post All-Star break, shooting damn near 50%. I mean, I was even looking at one of my friends pointed out to me to look at his splits at each point of the court beyond the 3-point line. And I think he's shooting like almost 60% or right around 60%, 61% from the corners, both corners, from 3 post All-Star break. Like he's supernova hot. Like he cannot, I mean, every 3 it feels like I watch from OG in the last month or so, it feels like it's gone in. So, I mean, kudos to him. I feel like he's put everything behind him, and I feel like it's affected his confidence in such a great way. And when you see OG's confidence up, you see him more engaged, and he's making all these passes that you're like, oh, that's the OG I remember. Making all these cuts, right? He had this really good cut it's classic OG Anunoby. Jakob Poeltl got it. I mean, they doubled Fred VanVleet at the top. I mean, like 30 feet away from the basket. Dumped it off to Jakob Poeltl at the high post. Jakob just turns and finds OG bounce pass on a baseline cut. And OG finishes, I think it was a reverse slam, if I remember correctly. But yeah, OG looks like a brand new player, and I'm loving it. And I mean, I got to eat some crow, guys, because I said when the off season comes, you know, if the Pelicans call and the Grizzlies call, you're gonna want to listen. But I think now, and yeah, I know Aiden just flexed because he was on the opposite side, right? He was on the Aiden, you win. But
it's not just a 3-point shooting though. Like everything, everything's clicking together. Like his mid-range percentages right now over the last, I think, 15 games or so are through the roof. His at-rim stuff, the way, like the last 2 games, granted, again, it's against Charlotte, but like his body control, his speed, his acceleration, deceleration, like he's on balance. He looks more confident. Like it's too early to say that he's becoming the next evolution of OG Anunoby, but it's looking pretty damn close. And like if he tops out at this is the player that the Raptors need to have some kind of success in the playoffs. Like a guy that can on the weak side exploit something or get a mismatch and go at him and score. And his defense alone makes him so valuable. But if he's a spot up shooter, knockdown, and then has a little bounce to his game driving, like I think it exponentially opens up this team's offense.
Yeah, and I think it's also fair to say that this is the OG Anunoby we were all expecting this season. I mean, prior to the season, this is the jump that I think we wanted to see. Which is, again, like I said, it's a really good thing for the Raptors because OG playing this well offensively, and then you already know that he's been giving you all defense level consistently throughout the season. I mean, hopefully he's named to the list, but that's a whole different story. Now that his offense is clicking at an incredibly efficient rate, I mean, now you're like, okay, the Raptors, they may not make crazy noise in the playoffs, but if they are going to, OG is going to be super, super important in it. And I think now OG's given Masai, I mean, things are different now. OG's probably giving Masai a little shake of the head because I know Masai, I'm pretty sure he damn near admitted that he took some calls on OG during the deadline. I mean, every national reporter reported that teams were calling for OG Anunoby, and Masai was listening. So I don't know. Maybe he doesn't pick up the phone this offseason if things go right in the play-in and the playoffs, or the playoffs, I should say. We'll see.
Yeah, I got to eat some crow too. Like coming into the season, I said that OG would have a better season than Scotty and that he would be the third best player. So coming into the season, I was really high on him, but it was just the inconsistencies that we've seen throughout his career that got me down on him by the time the trade deadline came along. Again, it was another season where he had injuries on and off and the rhythm just couldn't get going. But since the trade deadline, this, I think the like what we're saying is this is the longest stretch, I think, for me that he's played at such a high level, because we've seen this in flashes for the past few years in terms of the on-ball stuff, but it was always just a few games and then he just couldn't maintain it, and maintaining it is the hardest thing as teams adjust to you and their scouts adjust to you. But now it just feels like he's maintained it for a really long stretch and a really important stretch for the Raptors. So I agree, he's going to make them have to rethink. Yeah, I mean, he's up for a contract extension this offseason, and he's definitely selling himself to the team. Anyone else thoughts?
My last thought is when were the Raptors over 500? We are now 40 and 39.
Yeah,
which is incredible.
It's not the first time since opening day.
No, we got to over 500 like 3 games ago, and then we lost to.
Oh, were we?
Yeah,
I thought we
got
got 500. Okay.
Yeah, we did. We did get there, and then it immediately went down the hill.
Wait, against who?
Sure.
I forget who they lost to.
Who
Who did they lose to recently? Maybe it was the Pacers game. They were over 500 for that one, maybe.
Could have been.
Moving on.
I wanted to seamlessly transition from OG Anunoby to Nick Nurse. I do think these things are somewhat related because, yeah, this is seamless. Because, I mean, OG Anunoby, one thing about him is that there has been rumors for a long time about him being somewhat unhappy with his role in Toronto. And obviously, your offensive role is pretty strongly related to your head coach and the positions he puts you in and where he sees you in the hierarchy. And if the Raptors are going to kind of re-sign OG long term and just like him be a big building block going forward, something kind of had to give in terms of how is he going to get a different role in offense? How are you going to make him happy? And I think Nick Nurse chose to have some comments that were pretty illustrative about where his head is at, and maybe made it seem a lot more likely that he won't be the head coach of the Raptors than a lot of people, including myself, thought. But real quick to get people caught up who didn't really see what happened. Nurse was asked on Friday before the Philly game about just a really general question about the Raptors having an up and down season. And he said, first of all, I think when the season gets done, we'll reevaluate everything. And even personally, I'm going to take a few weeks to see where I'm at. like you said, where my head's at and just see how the relationship with the organization is and everything. It's been 10 years for me now, which is a pretty good run. I don't know. Over those 10 years, we got to be up there in number of wins with anybody in the league. I don't even know where that is, but we've had a lot of big seasons. And then right now, my head is to make as long as a season as possible. This team needs experience. So to that is where I'm at right now. Asked if he ever thought about being somewhere other than Toronto, he said, no, I'm concentrated on the job for sure and this game essentially. But I think 10 years is a good time to sit back and reflect a little bit. So I think we're going to do that all when the season ends. This obviously caught a lot of people off guard, I'm sure, including those in the front office. And people have wide array of takes from he did nothing wrong, I appreciate the honesty, to why would you open up about this at this point in the season? So I just want to like gauge what your guys' first reactions was to these comments. I've already said mine on this show, but like Aiden, we'll start with you. What do you think?
I said to you off the air, like I don't really ever want to get too up in arms around like, you know, a sudden thing that is said in thousands of hours of interviews post and pregame. That said, like he definitely could have taken the easy road out and said nothing of substance. And to be fair, this is why they do say nothing of substance, is because we just glom on to every single thing that has any ounce of like doubt or emotion behind it, and we debate it to bitter end. So there's that. But I also think the rumors don't really make sense to me, but they're also probably true. Like I know Mark Spears substantiated and said like this has been something that's been talked about over the last little while, and that they just chose not to report on it. The rumors being Houston makes no sense to me, because everything we're hearing about Nick Nurse is that like he doesn't want to be in a rebuild. He doesn't want to be with young guys where like you're going through, you know, the bumps on the road and the long process to developing. So that to me is a little bit dissonant as well, that the rumor is he wants to leave and the rumor is he wants to go to Houston. Like I don't that doesn't match up. All of that to be said, I think I'm actually not surprised if there was discontent between management and Nurse and or between Nurse and the players. Like we've been getting these vibes from the players for quite a while that they're not enjoying playing. They're not having fun. And our summation was that they didn't have fun playing with each other. But it could be that they actually just don't like playing for Nurse. Like all of this could just be that that Nurse has lost the guys, and that, you know, Nurse did not properly manage the different egos or different player types in the locker room, however you want to phrase that, and that things kind of turned sour. And so, you know, maybe Nurse has seen the writing on the wall, and he like realizes his time has expired there, or so many words have been alluded to by Masai. But I'm kind of at the point now, like just solely based on how he expressed himself, that like he's gone this summer. In combination with the Ime rumors too, which is quite interesting.
Where do I stand with Nick Nurse? You see the way you guys, I mean, I don't know, Oren, I'm assuming you're somewhere in between myself and Aiden. Aiden seems like he's not really like on the criticism side of Nick Nurse. He doesn't really want to get on him like I do, or like I am about to. You may be, Oren, with me, who knows? But and I can only go so far with what I say about Nick Nurse, because I mean I can't, right? But yeah, Nick Nurse, there's no way I can see him coming back to the Raptors next year. I don't want to over exaggerate, and a lot of people may think that I am by saying that, but he had a really difficult season of coaching. From what I hear, there was a lot of things happening behind the scenes with players, some that involved Nick Nurse, some that didn't. Not just this season, seasons past, where there's been friction.
What are you hearing? What are you
and
hearing?
I know,
break the
and
news,
I know
man.
it's convenient. I know it's convenient that people are going to go, oh, well, you're just bringing this up now because Nick Nurse said that. But I mean, there's some stuff that's just documented. Like he had a blow up with Pascal Siakam, I think 2 years ago or last year. That got swept under the rug. They made up whatever. But there's other things as well where sometimes you just look at this team and they look much more immature than they should. And at one point or another, you have to look at the coach and go, this is a coaching issue. We've been complaining, or I shouldn't say complaining, criticizing some of the rotation decisions all season long. Some things it just takes Nick Nurse so long to figure out. And again, I'm not saying this as a guy that I think I'm smarter than Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse is I think an extremely smart basketball coach. I still think he's easily a top 10 basketball coach in the NBA. But he struggled this year. And I think in a lot of ways, this Raptors team should have been better than they were this season. Some of that had to do with coaching. Some of that had to do with players. But Nick Nurse is definitely, I'm not absolving him from anything. I think for me, when I stack it up, what went wrong with this NBA season for the Raptors, the first thing I'm blaming, people may think I'm wrong about this. Personally, I don't care. First aspect of this that I think went wrong was the front office. Front office, I think, messed up in so many different ways this year, which is difficult for me to say because I am a Masai Ujiri truther. I'm a Bobby Webster truther. After that, second on the list, Nick Nurse, the coaching. Third, the players. And I mean, you can name any one of them because I think they've all had horrible moments this season, from Scotty to Fred to Gary, all across the board, the entire bench. But yeah, that's how I would stack it up. Yeah, I mean, what he said was, I think that it was insane. I think I think Nick Nurse was insane for that. I genuinely do. I think he was absolutely insane for what he said. And I'm sorry, like if that hurts, all the Nick Nurse truthers out there, or if Nick Nurse is somehow, some way, with the 0.01% chance listening to this, Nick, I'm sorry, man. You sounded crazy on Friday. And when I saw that, I was in shock, but then I also wasn't, because I feel like Nick Nurse has just been kind of holding on to things this season. A ship that's been on sea for so long that just has so many different holes in it. And Nick Nurse has just been trying to plug those holes and plug them. And certain players have drowned. You know what I mean? In the sea. I'm trying my best with this analogy. Certain players have drowned. Certain coaches have drowned. Everything has fell apart really this season. And like I said, second on the list for me is Nick Nurse. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I don't see him back this season. I think there's better options that the Raptors can look forward to going into next year.
Like what?
I mean, I personally would take. I mean, I would look into Becky Hammon. If Nick Nurse somehow, if we get that tweet from Adrian Wojnarowski and it says, the Raptors and Nick Nurse have mutually parted ways, I'm looking into Becky Hammon.
I don't think Becky Hammon wants to leave the WNBA.
Yeah, I know.
What about
she
Ime?
Probably doesn't, but I love her.
What about Ime, who is the one linked to the Raptor?
Yeah, I mean, Ime Udoka is a great basketball coach. Now, did he have problems in Boston? Absolutely. Before he even thinks about coming back to coach, he probably needs to apologize to whoever he thinks he needs to apologize to. But he needs to do something to kind of mend whatever happened. But Ime Udoka is an incredible coach. Like, that's something that you just can't take away from the guy. And I think if he puts all that stuff past him, definitely, why not look into Ime Udoka? He's also gonna, to be honest, and this is a big thing for me, and I'm sorry to go on this rant, but this is a big thing for me. One of the biggest things you go into next season, you gotta get a coach that, I mean, Scotty Barnes is gonna have the ultimate amount of respect for, because there were times this season where I was just, I would watch Scotty on the court, and I don't know, a part of me just felt like
tonight.
How do I put this where people aren't going to take this? He looked like he didn't have the 100% respect for the players and coaches around him some nights, with the way he played basketball. I'll say that. Okay. So yeah, get a coach in there that's going to demand respect. Get a coach in there that's going to put people in line. I think Ime Udoka will do that. He'll demand respect. So will a bunch of other coaches. I think there's so many great coaching candidates out there. I think every offseason there is.
I think Earl Watson on the Raptors bench is a good option. Keon, do you not think that the Raptors could bring in somebody who's better than Nick Nurse?
I mean, basketball wise, if you're just looking at the basketball, I think Udoka might be like might be the closest thing you could get to him. Like, I'm sure some people would say he's better here. It's really like that's probably the closest you could get when it comes to just basketball as coaching, because he just did so well for the Celtics in his 1 year. But I don't know. I feel like he has to get his stuff worked out, and I don't know if that's the type of stuff the Raptors need right now. Like, I feel like that might be a big distraction for them, but who knows?
That's fair.
I mean, he took a year off though, so I don't know. I don't know about that, to be honest. I don't buy that.
I think it's been long enough in the NBA discourse circle for the distraction to be over. As long as like what he did wasn't, I don't know. As long as like the information that comes out about what he did wasn't worse than what we've already learned. But I want to ask you also, Keon, because the other guys answer. Like, did you also take these comments as he's not going to be back next year?
I don't even know. Like Aiden said, these coaches talk to the media so many times during the day, so many games that, like, when we hear something like this, and they usually say a whole lot of nothing, but when they say something like this, that obviously is going to catch everyone's attention. I agree with Sahal. I don't think he deserves the brunt of the blame. I think the front office constructed this team, at least at the start of the season, pretty poorly, just without having the competent center at all. And I know they wrote the wrongs there at the deadline, but it just seems like there's always been, like, since the bubble with the whole Pascal stuff, ever since that, it's just felt like he's been slowly losing the room little by little. Like, not totally, but I just like this season was just, it never felt like that he had control. Like, it just felt like incredibly fluctuating from start to finish. Like, they never found an identity. They never found a role. They never found a true way to play basketball. No, like, the saying is, players need to have their own roles. They need to fit within their roles and play their style of basketball. And that was changing every single game for a lot of players, right? OG's role was changed, like we talked about earlier. His role was changing a lot throughout the season. Now we're watching him, and now he's flourishing when he has the ball in his hands more. I don't know. I didn't like the comments, especially when you're in the thick of trying to make the playoffs and trying to get into the play-in and get that 8 seed. Every game counts. Every game's important. And like, you have to just – I feel like that I would have liked him to at least save the comments for the offseason. Like, these are games you have to win. Like, these are like – and that was a distraction. And I don't know how you even play through that type of thing when your coach just looks like – when he says that to the media, when you have 4 games left and
crazy,
you're like, you have 4 games, and I know it's crazy. You have 4 games left, and you're 1 game behind and 1 game in front of the 8 seed, and the team's obviously trying to win games. So I don't even know. I don't know how Besai looks at it.
It's the ultimate disrespect to a franchise. That's what it is. You don't have to sugarcoat it, Keon, because I'll put the sugar on for you. I'll grab all the powdered sugar. I'll get the Splenda. I'll get the syrup. I'll do it all for you.
Really, Sahal, you're taking the sugar off.
Oh, yes. Good point.
Yeah.
And you're putting it in the holes of the boat.
You're slurping it up.
Exactly. You're putting it in the holes of the boat, adding a little water to the gardens.
CPR to the players who are drowning already.
Who are drowning, yeah. No, but honestly,
are they still at sea? Where are they right now?
They haven't gone to the shore yet. But Nick Nurse is driving the boat without a steering wheel now. He just took the steering wheel off and tossed it into the sea. So
that's what he did on Friday, eh?
That's what he did on Friday, yeah.
And then he covered himself in sugar.
Yeah. And everyone's starving, right? So who knows what's gonna happen. Okay, no, seriously though. Nick Nurse, to me, like I said, I'm not gonna repeat everything I said, but just a horrible thing to say at the worst possible time.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can think otherwise. I genuinely don't. And when I look back on it and I read the quote again, it was like, how do you say all of that and then you double down and you triple down and you quadruple down on what you're saying, and you haven't came to the realization that yet that this is how the media is going to accept this information from me. I mean, he made it clear. Normally, like, there's like coach speak and like, or like media speak, whatever the hell you want to call it. Players and coaches really say the same things during most press conferences, just in different words. But Nick, for me, I mean, like, he clearly said, like, this, I don't know what my future holds, and you're not supposed to say that when you're in the thick of it, heading into the play-in or playoffs. I don't know, but
Feels
yeah,
very
just
clutchian.
it's weird though, because
What's
for
that
me,
mean?
Like his
that?
agent's clutch.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like there's a ton of issues here that we're talking about. One is like X's and O's coaching. Nurse is obviously good at that. One is like the people management side of it. And I think maybe he's a bit worse at that than we thought. If this is really
Maybe.
kind of going in the toilet. But like, I agree with what you said, because okay, all of those topics in terms of why Nick Nurse is ultimately gonna, no longer be a part of the franchise, we can have those conversations when it happens. We can have them in the off season, it looks like, in terms of the X's and O's and the people management. But just in terms of these comments, I agree with you that it's like, it is like an FU. It's like because it's true that these coaches are constantly in front of the media and that like anything they say can get pulled. But Nurse has been around long enough to know that like this is a huge part of his job, is communicating with the media and saying the right things and really like keeping distractions out of the locker rooms. And like, we as the media, as an NBA fan base, we like critique players like Kevin Durant when they sign these like 1+1 deals and they won't commit long term to a franchise, and then it's like, oh, it's a distraction in the locker room. Oh, Draymond and Durant are fighting. Like, remember when that happened for a whole year? And it was literally just because Kevin wouldn't sign. It wasn't even like Durant was in the media like, I don't know about my long-term future. He wasn't saying anything. He just didn't want to sign a long-term deal. So if the players get that criticism, then the coaches deserve that criticism too, if they're going to let their upcoming free agency become a distraction. And Nurse didn't even like let it, like he brought it into the daylight, and he chose to make this
in Philly too.
Yeah.
Don't forget that part. Like, he did it knowing that these national reporters everywhere would pick this up. Like, he didn't just do it.
And when
in
a local reporter followed up
ESPN,
with
no?
him, this I also think, no, it was Keith Pompey at like some newspaper in Philadelphia. But
Keith.
Inquirer.
But when Lindsey Dunn at City TV brought it up and followed up, he completely denied accountability for it. Like, he basically just lied and said that he keeps getting asked these questions. But the point is that like he didn't take any accountability for what he said, and I think he knew he made a mistake. Like, that's what I think. I think he knew he messed up. He shouldn't have said those things, because my problem with it too is that now Pascal Siakam goes on NBA Today and he is asked what he thinks about his coach's future.
Love it.
Like, Pascal Siakam has enough to worry about right now.
What did he say?
He went from a big smile on his face, and then he was just like, she said, what do you hope to be the coaching situation in Toronto next season? And he just said, that's above my pay grade.
No glowing promotion at all.
It wasn't a promotion, which I think was somewhat significant.
Which is what most players, by the way, do when they're asked that question. And
but my point is more just that he got asked in the first place, and he only got asked in the first place. Now the players have to answer for this. That's just how the media works. Like, I'm going to go into the game and I'm going to ask players how they feel about this, because that's our responsibility. So
it's interesting. It's interesting because Canada, he's the Canada coach, and their Olympics, their biggest thing he's ever had to coach for internationals coming up next year too. So, or soon.
Yeah.
So that timing was weird too.
Yeah, get him out of there too. Sorry.
Yeah, no, again, it's like, I think Nick Nurse is a good coach. I've been on this program all the time. Whenever fans blame Nick, I said he is not the problem. I still don't think he's the problem. But I do think, like, as a character, like, as as a professional, really, it came off as super amateur, as in like, okay, this is a fractured relationship. I think they're not going to extend me this offseason. I'm probably going to be gone. Let me openly speculate about my future while pitching myself to the rest of the league by saying, I think I'm one of the most winning coaches in the last 10 years. It's like, why are you bringing up your resume when nobody asks you for your resume?
Yeah.
Does Nick
Yeah.
Nurse and Fred team up next year?
I think Nick Nurse and James Harden team up next year.
Especially because half of those 10 years he mentioned, he wasn't even the head coach. But I'm not even gonna go there. I'm not even gonna act like I'm this massive Nick Nurse hater or anything. But
yeah, say what you will about Dwayne Casey, but he is a nice man.
He is a gentleman.
He's a gentleman.
And
True
he is
pro.
a gentleman that quite clearly does not get along with Nick Nurse either, who sat
That's
beside
super
him
lame as well. Yeah.
Why is that clear? What am I missing on that?
Ooh, last game that Detroit was in Toronto. I mean, they've had this beef since Nurse got the job, but last game they both just took unnecessary shots at each other in the media.
Really?
Yeah.
You need to look through that stuff, Aiden. It's pretty. It's like Young and the Restless or like Passion. You know that show Passion?
I missed that too.
What the media stuff?
Yeah, I gotta look at that after.
Yeah, it's fun. But I mean, this has been like really known stuff. Like I don't know how you guys are figuring out about this now. The tension between those two over the last 3-4 years.
No, I knew there was something, but I know they were taking shots after this last recent game, like the one last. I didn't even see that. I'm gonna go look at that after this.
Yeah, but like Oren said, I mean, Oren probably took the most measured take, which he loves to do after asking me and Aiden to go first, and then he goes sit somewhere in between.
Yeah, don't sugarcoat it, Oren.
Whoa! I recorded a podcast on my own when none of you guys were here a couple of games ago, where I shared my thoughts. So that's why I let you all talk first.
No, you're right.
Yeah, I also am not. I'm careful with my words because there is a small chance that he'll be back next year, and then what do I want to fuck myself like?
Yeah,
Sal's used to eating crow. He's well adjusted to the crow appetite.
Just is what it is.
Listen now, I gotta put explicit now.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
That's my bad.
He said.
Anyways, that was a great Nick Nurse talk. Any other thoughts before we get out of here?
They allowed Nick Nurse to build his brand in Toronto. He had the whole NN thing happening on his hat. He was going to concerts and just having so much fun in the city. Won a championship, built the team how he wanted to build
he was
it, told Masai his vision. Yeah, he thought he was the Weeknd. He what's that that band?
He said in my city I'm a young god.
Yeah, like they let him they gave him a lot of control. And for him to do this at the end of the season after such a tough season where you go, you know what, there's definitely going to be constants. Pascal Siakam's not going anywhere in the offseason. Nick Nurse, before that happened, I would have said it's not going anywhere in the offseason no matter what. Probably a bunch of other guys. Like I don't really see Fred gone next season. But like there's certain guys that you just thought would be holdovers. And now I think that changed with Nick Nurse. And I can guarantee you, look, I'm not claiming to be the Adrian Wojnarowski of Toronto. I'm not even claiming to be the Oren Weisfeld of Toronto when it comes to my sources. But what I will say is I can almost guarantee after Nick Nurse said that, someone up there, whether it's Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, someone in MLSE, definitely had to have a talk with him. Because
he definitely said worse than what I said, Keon, on the podcast.
He changed his tone.
Their swear words were definitely worse. Yeah. All right, last 3 games, Celtics, Bucks. Anyone want to make predictions? I'm just going to say 2-1.
One more thing on Nick Nurse before just one more thing. David Thorpe on a national podcast did say to fire Nick Nurse. I just want to point that out there.
Really?
He did a while back. Yeah,
he did. Yeah,
I was surprised.
Well, he's a Barnes guy for sure, right? So
a Siakam guy,
big Siakam guy.
Yeah. So it makes sense. I mean, like at some point you just kind of have to think that the ship has run its course.
There we go.
That analogy,
like
whether it's reparable or not, I think like coaches do have kind of these natural life cycles, unless you're an exceptional one. And I did think at one point he was an exceptional one, but I don't want to critique his coaching style, but it does feel like there is a dissonance through the 3 levels of the franchise, the executive, the players, and the coaching staff, that might be at a point of no return. You are getting that feel.
Yeah, well, based on his comments, you definitely are. I'm glad you guys all feel this way because I have no idea what you're trying to show me.
The sinking ship.
It's a sinking ship. That's great. I'm glad you guys feel this way because I felt like a little bit crazy. I felt like all the reporting coming out about him was pretty timid and nice, and a lot of the fans I've seen say that like they appreciate his honesty, and I'm like, there's times for honesty and there's times where you just keep your mouth closed. So yeah, if people are interested more in my thoughts about this, I'll have a column at Yahoo tomorrow. But that was a good talk.
Nice.
Let's get out of here.
That was a good drop too.
I love that. That was so right.
And like, if you have interests.
If you have any interest.
If you have interest. I'm not going to hold your eyes open and make you stare.
Yeah, for the next 3 games, though, Boston. So Jaylen Brown sat tonight, suggesting he's going to play tomorrow. They're probably just frigging with the 76ers right now. Oh, yeah, we got to do the Can-Am tax. Thanks, Tomo. We got to go at that. And then the Bucks are probably not going to play. I don't know. Do the Raptors need to play anymore? Like, if Hawks win tonight, are they just kind of wedged?
The Hawks won tonight, by the way.
So are the Raptors basically wedged into 9th?
I believe if they win all 3 games, they still have a chance to get 8th.
But the Hawks would have to lose.
The Hawks would have to go 1 and 2 or something like that.
Yeah, we don't have a tiebreaker.
The Hawks also have a game against the Celtics coming up. That's probably the big game.
Hawks have Wizards, Sixers, Celtics.
And Sixers. Yeah.
All right.
Did Mike D'Antoni retire, or is he still available?
No, get that man far, far, far away from our franchise.
I think really when it comes to the next head coach, he has to be like a bit of a newer school guy who can relate to young players because the league is changing so drastically that it doesn't.
He's not
like
a
Nick
dinosaur or in.
He's old.
He's not. You think Scotty Barnes is gonna relate to Mike D'Antoni?
Yeah, but you're not trying to find Scotty Barnes' best friend. Ime Udoka's gonna put him in line. You know what I mean? So
that's I know you have to put him in line. Like you can't hand stuff over to him, but he's 72, bro. What are him and Scotty talking about? You think he streams?
Okay, so what were Greg Popovich and Kawhi Leonard talking about?
I bet you D'Antoni and Barnes have more to talk about than Nurse and Barnes do.
Yeah, I would think so too. I don't think Scotty Barnes talks to Nick Nurse. I'm joking. I'm not going to go that far.
No, I think Ime is the best candidate. I'll just say that.
I think he is too. Yeah. Mike D'Antoni is one of the best offensive coaches to ever live. I just want to point that out. So we're not going to do any Mike D'Antoni slander on Wrap Up Live.
Jaylen Brown also wants to play for a black coach and a black executive and a black ownership. We got 2 out of 3.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right,
Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown would be a great get.
I love him as a Raptor.
Great addition.
Don't know how it happens.
All right, canamtax.com. Call Can-Am Tax at the number at the top of your screen, or go to canamtax.com to get your taxes done. Certain people got till the end of the month, and they'll get you some good money back that you deserve. Don't go through one of those free TurboTax websites. Get your money back. Go to canamtax.com. Can-Am, we'll give it to OG and Hobie. Why not? Chris Boucher, Will Barton. They all get Can-Am Tax Man of the Night.
I think we should take the opportunity to give it to Will Barton because it's going to be the one and only time we can ever do it.
You're right. Will Barton made 6 threes today. In his previous time as a Raptor, he's made 5. So
on one ankle, he was hobbled early again.
Will Barton, Can-Am Tax Man of the Night.
Do we see GTJ in any of the last 3 games?
I think he plays tomorrow.
Yeah, I think he plays tomorrow too. It was like a back-to-back situation where they didn't want to play him against a bad team. That'd be my guess. They're gonna need him in the playoffs, play-in. All right, we'll talk about the play-in way more as we approach it. But yeah, we'll be back tomorrow for the Celtics game.
Shout out before we leave, sorry, Oren was about to say the last line.
Shout out to the Nick Nurse Foundation.
Oh Lord, no. Shout out to the women Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and everybody, South Carolina, LSU, Iowa, the Hawkeyes, they gave us some of the best basketball, I'm not exaggerating, I've seen in years. And if you're listening, WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, Toronto needs a team.
How many times do you practice that at the mirror?
And when we get this team, this is the third time now. When we get this team, Engelbert, yeah. When we get this team, obviously, I think if the way it works, Oren, is you get the first pick as an expansion team, right?
No, it depends because sometimes there's 2 expansion teams, like usually at the same time. So,
okay.
I just think they get like a certain odds in the lottery usually.
What I'm trying to say is we want Caitlin Clark here in Toronto for the first ever WNBA Toronto team. Oren replied to my tweet earlier in the week. He said, name them the Toronto Huskies. Give us all of your names, whether it's in the live chat, the next live chat, we don't care. Give us all of your WNBA team names for Toronto. I said the Toronto Owls. Something to do with OVO.
No.
I don't know. I just feel like Drake is just gonna stamp his foot on this team somehow, some way.
The Toronto
The Toronto Owls sounds disgusting, to be quite honest, but I'm not underestimating Drake's power in the city. But yeah, give us all your great names because I am the biggest Caitlin Clark fan on Wrap Up Live out of these 3 guys here. So
whoa,
yeah,
I
just wanna.
You don't know my dedication.
I'm getting a Caitlin.
Tell
Clark
us about it. Tell us about
zero
it.
dedication. Zero dedication.
Great.
Yeah. Anyways,
all right. So Hal wins
Madness.
the Caitlin Clark fandom.
Congratulations! Yes.
We're getting out of here. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.